in today's environment, be accustomed to the idea that when you say songwriter, what you actually mean is song maker. And your ability to create something in its most professional capacity is going to be synonymous with your ability to pay yourself, right? So in that way, yes, you are too a professional producer and you're a professional arranger and lots of these things, but you're a song maker. So the most simple way to say it, Anthony, is if a customer, client, person, networking, artist, whomever says, hey, I love this song and I want something that's like that. And this thing happened to me and I want to tell a story about that. The job is not just to sit on a flat top guitar, write that song, pitch it back to them. There was a time when that was the job. Absolutely. And for the longest time, that was the job. Now, the job is to bring that song to fruition. That's the job. So how do you begin to do that? I think the first thing that's necessary is that like it's obvious that you learn the stuff that you love, but you've got to learn the stuff that has been the most permanent, right? The most permanent. It's easy for people to pick apart catalogs of the uber famous, the Eagles, Aerosmith, Genesis. It's easy for people to pick apart these catalogs and then find all of these qualms by which to infuse into their catalogs. But ask yourself a very important question. Why do they work and why do they last? Why is it you can turn on any adult contemporary station in the world right now and Phil Collins is singing? What's going on with that? Right? For all of these people who supposedly dislike all of these, very super famous artists, boy, they sure do get played a lot. So somebody's listening and somebody's asking. So what's going on with that? Perhaps there's something a little bit deeper going on underneath the hood. Perhaps there's a language that's reaching into people that it's plainly stated. And maybe through that plain language, there's actually a multitude of stories being told. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to start to pick apart language and understand what's the nature of the cliche. When the cliche gets played on its head to mean two things, what's the nature of that? What is the double entendre? And not just in its most nefarious of ways, but what is the way to play the double entendre? If I have a metaphor in this song, how do I both speak to the metaphor throughout the entirety of the song while also making a point? What is the 3-act structure? What's the hero's journey? What's the purpose of this? Why do we learn that? Right? All of those things are crucial in songwriting. And the most famous of all songs will always include all of that I just said. Then from your musician perspective, it's just true, man. The better musician that you are, the better songs that you write. And that doesn't mean you have to make them as complex as possible. What you'll notice is the best musicians in history are masters of space. They're masters of space. The note they don't play will punch you in your face and throw you aback. It's the thing you wait to happen, the expectation that's subverted suddenly, right? It's where B.B. King stops the note and the emptiness that you hang on to. That's what the blues means, right? That's where it lives. Space is where really good groove lives, right? There's a reason why all the soul guys are also the jazz guys, are also the R&B guys, are also the most capable guys, because they're guys who love to play in the groove and in the space. You can hear their decisions, right? When you start to write songs, learn about space. Learn about what space says as a lyrical device. Learn how what you're saying melodically is also what you're speaking lyrically, right? It's the same thing. Learn about the redundancies of it. Take on the challenge of the biggest catalogs of all time, with their judgment cast aside and all of this, to figure out, why is this true, right? Why is Fly Me to the Moon still featured in movies right now? How is that possible? And if this is such a simple little tiny song and its meaning is so decipherable and easy to understand, then why does it still resonate? Well, perhaps there's a multitude of analogies that are happening in that song. And maybe the genius of the song itself is not just simplicity. Maybe the genius of the song itself is that depending on who's listening to it and depending on their familiarity with great standards, they're listening to different words with different meanings and different understandings. And a lot of that happens in country music way more than people are comfortable with realizing, right? Country music is made to be simple on this level, and it's made to have these layers that are underneath it. You need to look no further than Willie Nelson to establish that that is true, right? There's a host of metaphor that's happening, and then the metaphor never stops. It plays it all the way through, which is a difficult game to play. If you're beginning now, don't go right to YouTube. I tell this to my kids all the time, man. I say YouTube is this amazing thing where I would have been able to learn everything and nothing all at once, right? Because there is no bigger weapon in your repertoire than your ear. None. You've got to sit in front of the music and learn the music. Do it until your hands do it right, and then do it again. And when you know the song front to back, then learn the bass player's part, right? Understand every single choice for why the thing works. That thing that you love, do it until you hate it, and then you'll love it in a way you never knew you could love it before. You'll love it for reasons that you don't even realize exist yet. Don't use YouTube. Don't use the tutorials. Don't use charts, and don't use any of that yet. Pull it apart for what it is. Get into it. Really dig it for what it is. Find all that stuff yourself, right? Do it again and again and again. And you have no other route than to be a great writer. That's the process. The process. If you learn the process of it, right? Because I can assure you of this, all that advice I just gave you was business advice. That's business advice. People don't think that. I have songwriters who reach out to me maybe once a day, right? At least once a day. And sometimes it's a ton, but at least once a day, somebody says, how do I write music for a living? And my answer usually comes across as condescending, and they hate it. I say, learn to write better music. They don't want to hear that. What they wanted to hear was, well, if you, here's my email list that I put together, and there's these section of clients who live on this forum, and they just can't wait to give you a bunch of money. And it's not that. That's not the job. The job is that you have to, the more that you learn about writing, and look, and again, I'm not saying that mine is a professional studio on Music Row and my productions are the caliber of quality of the $100,000 production. It's not about that. It's about the distinction between whether or not you write good music, right? Because a good song can beat a bad production, but a great production cannot save a bad song. That is the facts, right? All those songs from the 40s and the 50s and a lot of songs from the 60s, you really listen to them right now, they sound like they could be recorded on your iPhone. And you don't care. You don't care, man, because that's not the game. The game is the song good? And the answer is irrefutably yes. And in fact, you trust more that song is good. You trust it more because you know that the technology is less, right? And that's, they are you are me, are people sitting in front of something, just learning how to do the thing and beating their hands. If you want to be of making a living out of songwriting, the first game is learn how to write really, really good songs. You'll know if it's a good song because people will tell you. If they tell you that they don't get it and they tell you that they don't like it, be honest with yourself. 99.9% of every single songwriter I ever met in my life, when confronted with the idea that the song they wrote's not any good, goes, well, you just don't get it. Right? And, hey, some people like this and some people like that. That's true. But if 3 people out of 3 people tell you that the thing's not very good, or they go, I don't understand, or what's the purpose of this, or what are we doing? Or, be honest with yourself. If something needs more time, it needs more time. It's fine, right? The difference between the professional songwriter and the amateur songwriter is editing. That's the difference. The difference is in the edit. The difference is not in the ability to do it right the first time. First time what? You didn't earn that. Yes, inspiration does strike. Yes, inspirational moments do happen. That's fine. That's why they make good stories. They shouldn't be every single time. Everything you said the first time doesn't make it true, right? And it doesn't make it right. Then the next step is to put yourself into situations where you can write with other people and know whether or not those people actually have the credibility to be telling you when a line is good and bad or indifferent, right? Then that's at the point where you start, once you've intersected with those worlds enough, then you can start to take people's money. I'm not one of these who thinks you should take people's money in real time to learn on the job. No, that is not the way that this works. You've got to be at the point where you can impact people. You got to be at the point where you can humble yourself and learn, even when you don't necessarily like the thing that person is teaching you. the person who's done it before. And by the way, those resources are easy to find. They're out there, right? Some of them cost money. A lot of these number one hit songwriters, they have websites right now where you can go and they'll say, I'll write you a song. I'll write a song with you. I'll teach you how to write a song. Because a lot of those guys, that's how they supplement their income. Do it. Scrounge the money up and do it. That resource didn't exist when I was young. I'd have blown everything. I'd have played gigs just to do that. You know what I mean? Because they're going to say things that are going to change your world. And the last thing you want to do is disagree with them about it. They've proven it. They've proven it. There's nothing to disagree with, right? Once you're at that point and you've sort of learned about the combination of production and arrangement, what chord structures do, what the purpose of them is, how you can write a song, how you can write a song that's underneath that song, what that even means, you start to get this understanding with other professional songwriters. What is dualism in music? What is the dual narrative songwriting technique? What is, which by the way is a very exclusive technique and only some people use. I'm of a very thin lineage left. But once you're at that point, your songs will be good enough that when you go to these third-party environments and you offer your services and stuff, something about the way that your stuff hits will resonate with people differently. You can tell the difference between a person who can navigate through a professional song confidently and not. You can tell an amateur from not. And it doesn't matter what plugins you have, man. It doesn't matter if you spend $1,000 on plugins that sound like all the other hit songs in the world. If you don't know what you're doing, that will be obvious, just as it will be obvious if you do know what you're doing. And there might not be words for it, but the clients will follow. It all begins with sitting down and learning the fundamentals. The same advice that your high school basketball coach would give you when it comes to, hey, you've got a ton of talent as a basketball player. I sure wish that you knew where to put your hands. I sure wish you knew how to play defense better. Right? I understand why you're watching the ball when you should be watching the guy's hips. I don't get it. And you learn fundamentals and you start to see the things, right? And as those fundamentals grow, it amplifies all of the other creative parts to it. The parts that wow people, right? That's where you should start. And every guy that I know that has been successful at this in some way, shape, or form, right? Even if they don't do it for a living, they would tell you the same thing, particularly if they're musicians. Okay.